Everything usually goes quiet when the recording starts.
Yeah, there we are. Yeah, that's a bit of a conversation killer, isn't it? Yeah. So.
How is the weather up island, Chris and Janine?
Lovely and sunny today. But I was just telling Chris, my daughter was down in Victoria last night for a concert, and I came back over the Malahat and driving snow last night, which I think is all gone now. It was a bit of a shock, but lovely and sunny today. But I think the next couple of days are going to be a bit wet.
Yeah, and they're actually talking about the possibility of some snow.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yep.
And I guess as it gets further east, it's going to get worse. So you're telling people on the prairies to be careful. As
well-known April snow showers that we getting used to.
So, yeah, no, somebody had posted a photograph, but I thought, well, they're a bit late for April Fools because it looked like there was a fair bit of snow around.
It was last night on the Malahat. It was.
Yeah.
I don't think it stayed, but
it snowed at my place.
Oh, you had some? Did you show some?
Yeah, when I went to put one of the dogs out last evening, he wouldn't go because it was sleeting down and everything was white, but it was mostly gone this morning. And the other day it snowed too. When was that? Like a few days ago?
We certainly had we had a hailstorm on Saturday around noon. It came in, but it didn't stick.
Is that what the noise was? I couldn't figure out what the noise was.
We had two hailstorms, actually.
Yeah.
The second one was more intense, but shorter. A friend of mine lives in a high elevation spot in Nanaimo, and they got quite a bit of snow, actually.
It's quite amazing how different the weather is in Nanaimo between the north and south, between the north and south end of Nanaimo, the weather difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you live up the hill there a bit too, up above the university and stuff, that area seems to be be snowier again too.
Yep.
So while we're just waiting a few more moments for people to show up, so we have a guest speaker this evening. We have some Edmonton photos. David Lee would like to say a few words. Does somebody want to talk about the Saturday Star Party today? Lauri, okay. And then maybe give you a very brief update on Astronomy Cafe site, and just a reminder, and maybe I don't know if Margie wants to say a few words at the end about we're refreshing the volunteers list, and she's heading that up. So if you haven't given us your name and you've been a volunteer in the past, could you give us your name again, just so we know who would like to be a current volunteer. So I think that's it, unless anybody else has something, and we'll see how time goes too.
If there's a few minutes at the end, I've come into possession of a bag full of books that could possibly help a bunch of beginner people. They're all mostly Messier guides, different versions.
Very good. Yeah, okay. I write you down on the list, and hopefully I'll actually read it when it gets to the time.
If it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter. They don't go bad. They're books.
They're books, yeah, and that might be something the beginner SIG might be interested in having a look at too.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's as far as looking at actual Messiers and things in the group, but somebody may take that on. I'll just wait another moment or two.
I just noticed a message from Malcolm. He asked me just to relay to you folks that he won't be here for Astronomy Day, so he won't be organizing those pieces. You can contact either myself or Randy. Oh, you can contact Lauri as well. There's more information to follow later on in the program.
Okay, well, it's 25 to, maybe we should get started. So I'd like to welcome our guest speaker this evening, Chris Boar from the Nanaimo Astronomy Society. And I'll ask Janine, who's a member of our center and lives in Nanaimo, so funnily enough is a member of the Nanaimo Astronomy Society as well, if you would kindly introduce your club president from that end.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I'm a director on the Nanaimo Astronomy Society board, and happy to greet you tonight with that hat on. We, from time to time, will have guest speakers from RASC Victoria, and you've had some of us, Tony and I have presented. And Randy Enkin was our speaker last fall, and he extended a particular invite to us to do that again. And we're happy that Chris Boar accepted. So Nanaimo Astronomy Society, which is unaffiliated with RASC and has about 100 members, will celebrate its 20th anniversary in 2024. Tonight's another great opportunity to continue this productive liaison with RASC Victoria. I'd like to introduce Chris Boar, self-proclaimed El Presidente of NAS, a term we all affectionately embrace. Chris is also a self-proclaimed Apollo program space nerd and shares his deep and wide knowledge of space exploration, both historical and current, with us on a regular basis. Tonight, he'll share with Astro Cafe attendees his experience, enthusiasm, and respect for the subject in a presentation that focuses on his visit to the Johnson Space Center in Houston in 2019. Please join me in welcoming Chris Boar.
Thanks, Janine. That's the first time you've introduced me, I think. Right, so I'll just start screen sharing. Can everybody see that? Yep. Thanks for having me, folks. Yeah, so as Janine mentioned, I'm Chris, current president of the Nanaimo Astronomy Society. Bit about that in a minute, but yeah, so this chat is about it's really about two separate trips I did. So back in November 2019, I visited Johnson Space Center to go on their VIP level 9 tour. I'll explain what that is in a minute. And I'm also going to intersperse it with some various tales and stories from the Apollo era that you may not be aware of. But first, just quickly say, yep, I'm president of the Nanaimo Astronomy Society. I'm not quite sure how long I've been president. I think it's been well over 10 years. I kind of lost track. But I say, so Janine's on our board as well as Tony Pers, who's our VP and is a member of your chapter. So there's a few other events. So that was a telescope show and tell our sort of observatory site, and then we normally set up on Canada Day. Hopefully we'll be doing that this year. We obviously haven't been able to do it for the last couple of years. And just to show you how much of an Apollo space nut I am, this is the room I'm currently sat in. So this is my office stroke Apollo shrine stroke man cave. I spend a lot of time in this room because this is where I do my work, because I'm a photographer. So it's my editing system. And those are all my Apollo astronauts, autographed Apollo astronaut signed prints. And would you believe the paint color is Mission Control Gray? Believe it or not, I had to buy that when I saw it in Home Depot. Actually, I do need like a neutral grey to edit when I'm editing photos, but I just had to have Mission Control Grey when I saw that. So as I mentioned, this chat is about two separate trips I did. So one was the trip to Johnson Space Center back in November 2019. So that was about 4 months before the shit hit the fan, so to speak. Little did we know, and I actually met up with a British space nut friend of mine, Colin. You can see him there getting in the way of me trying to take this photo of the actual space shuttle carrier. That's the actual one of the jumbo jets that used to cart the shuttle around America, and that's a fake shuttle on top, actually built out of wood, would you believe? So this is right next to the parking lot of Johnson Space Center. And the other visit I did, which is I'm going to intersperse all my tales of Apollo, is an event called Space Fest, which normally happens every year. An amazing event of retired astronauts, both Apollo and shuttle, space artists. There's some amazing space work, and also lots of astronomers, some very high profile astronomers give presentations at this event. I'll quickly mention those later. And I think they met last year. This was back in 2016, where I met quite a lot. I think I met 12 Apollo astronauts, including 4 moonwalkers. And this was like the buffet banquet entrance Anyway, so what's the level 9 tour, I hear you ask, or not? So if you go to Johnson Space Center just as a normal tourist, your price of admission includes various things like they've got a big exhibition center and a few other things. But if you go, the level 9 refers to the 9th floor of the administration building at NASA, which is where all the top bods sit. That's where the National Administrator Bill Nelson's office is, the guy appointed by the president. You need a special key card to get into the 9th floor. So they've kind of purloined the phrase that we're the special level 9 tour guides. Tour's about 4 to 5 hours. You about 10 to 15 people. You have your own tour guide for the entire day. Lunch is included. Sort of you get a break in the middle, and you get to visit quite a few sites that aren't included on the normal tour that's included in admission. From my point of view, this place is just oozing space history. For example, that's the outside of the Mission Control Center, which you may recognize, just from various movies or NASA film. Named after Christopher Kraft, who was the guy who invented mission control way back in the Mercury days. And I say the whole place is just oozing history. The actual Apollo mission control room itself is a National Historic Landmark. I'll show you that later. So this is just like the general visitor center, very good exhibition they got in there. You walk in and they've got this LEM hanging up above you. That's actually the lunar module that was supposed to fly on Apollo 19. But a very good general exhibition in there. They've got a scale model of the space shuttle and the ISS. Tons of stuff in there. I'm really going to avoid that because that's sort of you'd see that anyway. I'm just going to concentrate on the stuff you see in the level 9 tour. So the first place they take you to isn't a JSC. It's just about 2 miles outside. It's quite a drive actually. The Neutral Buoyancy Lab in BL, which is where the astronauts train underwater for their various missions. This used to have a shuttle mock-up in it, but now obviously it's got the space station in there. It's got some of the Japanese modules. It's got some SpaceX modules in there. And we walked along up in the gantry. Quite an amazing building. And we were lucky enough, there were actually 2 astronauts in the water when we were there doing some training. I've got some video of it. I don't know if you can see them. I'll just play this plays. Or not. Oh, let's go back. Right, so if you can you see the hose over there? So that's an astronaut there. There's 2 astronauts in there and about 7 divers. It's a very deep pool, and there were a load of people up in the control room monitoring their progress. You can just about see the astronaut there, fully kitted out. And this is the commercial crew. So this is the current round of NASA astronauts. About 20 astronauts that are split between the SpaceX capsule and the Boeing capsule, which is yet to fly. But yes, we were quite lucky to see them out there training. So we can see all the divers. There's about 7 or 8 divers under there.
This pool, once it was built, of course, we have a neighborhood.
It's just a quick video. So, and the NBL, the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, was actually suggested, I believe it was an idea by Buzz Aldrin, because back in the Gemini days, they had so many issues trying to do spacewalks that Buzz came up with the idea, well, we can simulate, 0G. If you can weight yourself appropriately, you can float in the water. So I believe he was actually the guy who came up with the idea of having the Neutral Buoyancy Lab for future training. So there he is, part of his Apollo 11 crew, and I was lucky enough to meet the guy in the middle and have lunch with him, Mr. Michael Collins. He's probably the least known of the Apollo 11 crew. He was the guy who had to stay in orbit by himself while the other 2 went off down picking up rocks on the lunar surface. And so I was lucky enough to meet him in 2016. Unfortunately, he passed away last year. We're losing the Apollo astronauts every year now because they're not getting any younger. And I had lunch with him, which was quite a surreal experience. He came up to me and offered his hand and said, "Hi, I'm Mike." I thought, yes, I know. It's like went to the moon with Armstrong and Aldrin. Really funny guy. If you only ever read one Apollo astronaut autobiography, read his, called "Carrying the Fire." It's considered like the best of all the autobiographies. Very funny guy and very heartfelt. And he signed, I'll show you my, he signed my Apollo 11 Haynes manual. I'll just show you it in there. Where is it? Can you see that? I don't know if you can see that. There we go. So he signed that for me. Fascinating guy. And he took this very famous photo. You see this pop up now and again as like, who's the only person in the world who's not in this photo? Because you've got the Earth behind it, and that's Armstrong and Aldrin coming back to dock after walking on the moon. Random fact, this is the only intentional photograph of Armstrong that was taken on the lunar surface. I don't know if you realise that. There is one other photo that kind of caught him by accident, but he never actually posed for a photo, much to the consternation of the Apollo media crew when they got back, when they were busy going through all the film slides, trying to find the, that classic shot for the Time magazine. And they suddenly realised that because Armstrong had the camera for 99% of the time, there weren't any photos of him. Most of the photos you see on the moon are actually of Aldrin for the Apollo 11 mission. So there you go. That is the only intentional photo of Armstrong on the moon. So once we're in the Mission Control Center, you get to go in the viewing gallery for the current ISS Mission Control Room. This isn't part of the normal tour. You wouldn't see this if you just do the standard tour. So it's quite an honor to be in there. You don't actually get to go in the room itself because it's obviously an active, operational 24-hour, 24/7. Few interesting consoles down there. This guy there, he is the flight director. He's basically God. Not even the president can override what this guy says. The buck stops with him. The person next to him is Capcom, or capsule communicator, and that person is normally an astronaut that normally talks to the crew. When we were there were actually night time, so you can see up on the monitors there's not a lot going on. We actually watched them come into sunrise, which took about 10 minutes. Fascinating room. And I'm just going to play a little video for you, because we go in on one of the stations. I don't know if you can see it over on the right. It was a station called Pluto. So I had to ask our tour guide what Pluto was. So you can listen to this. What's Pluto short for? The Pluto station?
Oh yeah, plug-in utilization officer. They handle anything that's plugged in on the International Space Station.
Oh, okay. That must be a lot of stuff.
Yeah, David's going to kind of tell you about everything.
Yeah, so they have one station just to do with anything that's plugged in on the space station. Imagine must be a huge amount of stuff. So there we go. So we'll be back in the Mission Control Center later on. So this is the big Saturn V they've got on display on its side, which is part of the normal tour. Anybody can see this if you go to Johnson Space Center. So we included this as well. It's actually various bits pulling together from about 3 or 4 different missions that didn't happen, and test articles. It's hilarious. I didn't include the photo, but the cone here, the escape tower, the end of this is about 3 inches from the end wall. I don't know if that was planned or just luck. Anyway, the thing's huge. I don't know if you've ever been to Kennedy Space Center or Johnson, but this is the business end. And I'm a photographer, and this is a crap photo. I should have lined that up better. Anyway, so you actually get to look into those nozzles of those massive F1 engines. Quite incredible to be stood that close to that. Now then, does anybody know where this phrase is from? Anybody? Any of the older folks here are bigger follow nuts? Nope. Well, the first crewed mission to the moon on the Saturn V was Apollo 8. And that was made back in Christmas 1968. And that was a famous phrase that one of the astronauts, Jim Lovell, on board said when they checked in, when they did their TV broadcast when they did the very famous Christmas Eve broadcast, where they read from Genesis. And I was very lucky to meet Jim Lovell and have dinner with him along with 8 other people, which is totally surreal. So there he is, the guy himself. Went to the moon twice, but unfortunately never walked on it. Flew on 2 Gemini missions. He was on Apollo 8. He was the first human to see the far side of the moon, just out of, random fact. He was also probably more famously known as the commander of the ill-fated Apollo 13 mission. So if you've seen the movie, he was played by Tom Hanks. All right, just so you. So again, he was lucky. I got him to sign my Apollo 13 Hayes manual, and both him and Fred Hayes, who's the other Apollo 13 astronaut there, so autographed that for me. Really nice guy. And as I say, I was very lucky to have dinner with him along with 8 other people. Probably one of the highlights of my life, meeting this guy, along with Mike Collins. Right, so now we're going to go into building 9. And every single building on Johnson Space Center has a number, and every single door's got a number. And your key card that you get if you work there only lets you in certain doors. Very, as you can imagine, the whole place is very highly secure. So now we're going into the space vehicle mock-up facility, building 9N, and it's got a huge amount of history to this building. There you go, big sign, massive building inside, all sorts of stuff in there. Down this end, now the difference is with the, I believe for the normal tour, you walk along the gantry on the side, but with the level 9, you actually go down on the shop floor, so to speak. Massive building. They've got lots of like test stuff down here, Mars modules. There was a robot just off out shop, and then down the far end, they've got. We'll go past these guys. Actual real spacesuits. Those two on the right are about $10 million each, apparently. They use those for suit checks and testing various new pieces of equipment. And then down the far end of Building 9 is the ISS mock-up capsules, which obviously the astronauts, the commercial crew, use for training before they go up to the ISS. There's also some of the Japanese segments there. Obviously, they've got some of the SpaceX stuff now there, because SpaceX is docking with the space station on a regular basis now. And they also have the Soyuz stuff, although given current circumstances, I'm not sure how much longer they'll be using that. So the commercial crew is what NASA's calling its current round of astronauts. I think it's about, I can't remember, about 15 of them, and they all train in here as well. So this is the inside of this is the Soyuz training capsule. Not a lot of room in there. Very tight, very claustrophobic. We weren't allowed to get in, unfortunately. I wanted to get in. And actually, it suddenly occurred to me afterwards that this was the same building that the Apollo astronauts trained in. So it's been around a long time. There's a huge amount of history in that building. And just carrying on in terms of like testing and training, this is a very underrated Apollo mission that most people don't really talk about. It's Apollo 9. I actually rate this is one of the most dangerous missions they ever did, because this is where they tested a lot of this hardware for the very first time, where they docked the command module with the lunar module. They tested the space suits. They did a moonwalk. So a very underrated mission, but very critical to allow them to do, to go forward with the Apollo program. And if you ever see Apollo photos with the Earth in the background with the Apollo hardware, it's Apollo 9, because that's the only time the Earth was ever in the background with those hardware, because normally it was the moon in the background. And I was lucky enough to meet the entire Apollo 9 crew at Space Fest, and they're all still alive, actually, all of them. Rusty, Dave, Scott, and Jim McDivitt, all really nice guys, and so they're all hitting their late 80s now. Hopefully they'll keep going. A bit of Apollo folklore. Does anybody know what tri-SCE to AUX means? Any Apollo nuts out there? Bueller? No? This refers to Apollo 12, and this is argued this technical call in mission control actually saved the entire Apollo program, because what happened was Apollo 12 just after launch got hit by lightning. They took off in a lightning storm, believe it or not, and sure enough, about a minute after launch, it got hit by lightning. And it completely threw the main computer off, but it still kept flying. But of course, all the consoles in mission control lit up like a Christmas tree, and this poor guy, Jerry Griffin, right, mission flight director, I got to meet at Space Fest. This was his very first mission in mission control, and he's faced with a possible abort situation. But this guy down the end, John Aaron, was lucky enough that he recognized the mess of alarm signals in front of him and realized what the problem was. And he said, try SCE to AUX. And nobody knew what it meant. But anyway, so the Capcom forwarded the message to the astronauts. But it's basically a fairly obscure switch, and it just basically switched over to a different piece of hardware and brought everything up. But if John Aaron hadn't have known what that issue was, there was a good chance they would have had to abort Apollo 12, and possibly that would have been the end of the Apollo missions, because there was budget pressures to cancel it anyway. Apollo 11 had already done what John F. Kennedy wanted it to do. So you could argue John Aaron, that guy down the end there, saved the Apollo program with that call. Oh, and this guy in the end, God, that's Christopher Kraft. He was still in charge back then. He was a fearsome guy by all accounts. Right. Now this guy is Alan Bean. Now he was the guy who flicked the switch in the command module to reset the computer and make sure they carried on. I was lucky enough to meet Alan. Now this capsule here to collect some lunar samples is currently in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in Washington. You can see that. So this is the Apollo 12 mission. So this is Alan Bean being taken by his commander, Pete Conrad, who's reflected in his visor. I was lucky enough to meet Alan Bean. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. Very good artist. Fantastic art. Well, it's one of my life's ambitions to own one of his originals, but I don't think I'll ever be able to afford it. But he basically did he did tons of canvas artwork of his missions or just his own imagination of what it was like to walk on the moon. And so he was a moonwalker. He walked on the moon on Apollo 12. And I say this is a very sad photo. Actually, there's actually 4 Apollo astronauts in this photo that are all dead now. So there's Alan Bean there. Oh, I forgot his name. I ought to know this name. Gordo, he was the Apollo 15 command module pilot. There's Michael Collins, Apollo 11, and just there, you can't see him, just there is Gene Cernan, Apollo 17, who passed away a few years ago. But Alan Bean, so he flew Apollo 12, walked on the moon. He also went on Skylab. If folks remember Skylab. Now, I briefly mentioned that there are some very good astronomy presentations. If you ever want to see some real quality presentations and cutting edge and some very big names in astronomy, go to Space Fest. We had a presentation by Dr. Leslie Young, who was part of the New Horizons team that flew to Pluto. Very fantastic presentation. It's hilarious. I just took this quick photo of her because she was saying they talked to it was like a 10-year program, New Horizons, just to get approved. And then it was a 10-year mission to get there. And they say we arrived 90 seconds early, apparently, they said. So I say there are some very good astronomers there and presentations there. Here's a good example. Anybody remember the Hale-Bopp comet? There you go. There's Mr. Hale and Mr. Bopp, Thomas Bopp and Alan Hale. And that was after one of their presentations. So even if you've got no interest in the Apollo astronauts, it's worth going for the astronomy side and their presentations, and the space art as well. Some fantastic space art. So we're back in mission control. This is, I don't know if this is the famous 3 doors. This has been in a few movies. You get to pose in that. The normal tour doesn't do this. We didn't actually go in those doors. I don't know exactly where they go, but I guess they go into various parts of mission control that we weren't allowed to see. And then we go into the actual mission control, Apollo mission control room itself, and there's got this sign on the outside door. Quite a few very well-known missions there. Most of the Gemini, all of the Apollo, and about first half of the shuttle missions included the ill-fated SDS-51L, which was Challenger. They had to deal with that in the Apollo mission control room. And there it is, recently restored. I think they restored it about 4 years ago because it was in a pretty sad state of affairs. But basically, they completely gutted the room, took everything out, put new floor tiles down, except one. They left one of the original floor tiles, and it sticks out like a sore thumb because it's got about 20 years worth of cigarette smoke and spilled coffee and pizza embedded in it. But they kept one floor tile, but everything else was ripped out, refurbished. All the consoles work. I mean, the attention to detail is ridiculous. They've got like spilt coffee mugs, the original headsets, all the paperwork. Everything's exactly like it was. Most of it's original, and all the original screens work. And it's quite amazing. So this is taken from the viewing gallery. Now, if you do the normal tour, you get to go in the viewing gallery, and this is what you see. And they do a fantastic presentation. They actually made the hair stand up on my neck because when you first go in, everything's off. All the consoles are off and all the big screens are off. And they've got these little like CRT TVs that must have been the original ones. And then Gene Kranz comes up. And now Gene Kranz is probably the most famous flight director that you probably never heard of. He was the one that they portrayed in the Apollo 13 movie. There was actually quite a few flight directors in the Apollo era, but he's the most famous one. So he does this talk where they basically recreate the Apollo 11 landing, and they run through it in real time. And as he's doing this, all the monitors come on and the screens come on, and you hear the astronauts and all the clocks are working in real time. You can see that this little screen over here it's when they're on the lunar surface. There's like these little paper models, and somebody was pushing them around just to show where their relative position was to each other and to the lunar module. And then you actually see Armstrong come down the ladder, and literally my hair was up and I stood up on the back of my neck as I realized I was watching this on the actual screen where they first saw it. And then let you go inside the actual room, which you don't get to do on the actual the normal tour. The VIP tour, you get to go inside it. So this is just a quick bit of video that I shot. Just wait for it to play.
And then 11 was left. It was a backup flag for 11, not the flag that's taken. There were two flags, and one was a backup flag. I don't know why, but it was brought back, and then it was given to the room. But it had been to the moon, it was just on the wheel. And then they thought, and I agree with it, that 11 should be on the moon. So
There you go. And you're not actually allowed to go. You used to be able to sit at the consoles before they restored it, but you're not allowed to go there now. There's like a security wire, trip wire that sets an alarm off if you cross it. Oh yeah, no, this is my British space nut friend Colin, who came over from the UK to do this trip, and he's sitting in the chair that the Queen apparently sat in when she visited. So he's doing the royal wave. I think I've lost my camera. I don't think you can see me, can you? Can you guys see me? Just bear with me a minute. I'll get you back. There we go. Yeah, so he's doing the royal wave. So there's the obligatory, it's not a selfie because you took it, but just a shot of me just to prove I was actually inside Apollo Mission Control, which is like hallowed ground for Apollo space nuts. Quite impressive to be in that room. One of the probably the most famous missions they had to deal with in there was Apollo 13. And this was a quote from the wasn't the flight dynamics officer, it was the ecom guy, electronics guy, that basically once he realized he wasn't dealing with an instrumentation problem, he realized that all his alarms were telling him that the command module on Apollo 13 was about to run out of power and oxygen, and they had to move fast. They had about 15 minutes to get the Apollo astronauts out of the command module and into the lunar lander and use that as a lifeboat. Yeah, and would you believe it launched at the 13th minute of the 13th hour? What could possibly go wrong? Just about everything. But they, as we know, they survived. And if you watch the movie, it's quite a fantastic movie, very true to life. And so I got to meet the remaining Apollo 13 crew who's alive. So obviously the guy on the left is Jim Lovell, and the guy on the right is Fred Hayes. Now in the movie, he's the one who got sick. He was played by Bill Paxton. He actually went on to become the shuttle test pilot. So when, I don't know if you remember, back when they were testing the shuttle before it actually launched, there's a shuttle called Enterprise that they just used for landing, and Fred Hayes was one of the pilots that tested the space shuttle for its landing capabilities. And the Enterprise is now on display in New York, I believe, on the Intrepid aircraft carrier. But these two guys are still alive, thankfully. They're both still with us, very mobile and active, and still see them around doing public events. I think I was very lucky and honoured to meet them both. Just a few other people's involved in Apollo 13. So there you go, Cy Liebergert, he's portrayed in the Apollo 13 movie. He was the poor guy he was the main point guy, really, because he was in charge of all the electrical systems, and his console lit up like a Christmas tree when the Apollo 13 capsule blew its oxygen tank. He was, as he said in his book, he was like gripping both handles on his console really tightly, like wishing he could go home. And the guy on the right is Jack Loosma, who was a Capcom. He was young boy at the time. He was the guy who spent most of his time talking to Apollo 13, and he then went on to fly in Skylab and also the third shuttle mission. So to say, so Space Fest, you get a big range of Apollo and shuttle astronauts. Now then, another quick space fact. So, quick experiment to show you. So this is Apollo 15, the commander, Dave Scott.
I want to watch this. Joe, you have a good picture there. I've got
beautiful picture, Dave.
Well, in my left hand, I have a feather. In my right hand, a hammer. And I guess one of the reasons we got here today was because of a gentleman named Galileo a long time ago, who made a rather significant discovery about falling objects in gravity fields. And we thought that where would be a better place to confirm his findings than on the moon. And so we thought we'd try it here for you. The feather happens to be appropriately a falcon feather for our falcon. And I'll drop the two of them here, and hopefully they'll hit the ground at the same time. How about that? Which proves that Mr. Galileo was correct in his findings.
So there you go. That's that, and there he is, the guy on the left who just took the hammer the feather. I actually asked him about that when I met him. He said it wasn't a planned experiment. He sneaks the feather on board with his personal belongings. He had the hammer anyway, it's just part of the rock gathering equipment they had. But yes, I was lucky enough to meet Dave Scott. He was also, his life was saved by Neil Armstrong on Gemini 8, I believe it was, when they had a stuck thruster that put them into like a 60 RPM spin where they nearly blacked out, and it was Armstrong that figured out what to do. So that guy there owes his life to Neil Armstrong. Very nice guy. And I say he was the commander of Apollo 15. He was also the first guy to drive the Lunar rover, which I'm in the middle of reading a book about how they built the Lunar rover. And there he is driving the Lunar rover. And I believe you don't really get any sense of scale about how big these mountains are on the moon, but I believe that mountain behind is about 15,000 feet high. It's sort of like, higher than Mauna Kea on Hawaii. And those lunar rovers, I believe, I worked it out, they're in today's money, they're worth about $81 million each. Well, that's what they cost to build. So you could argue they're probably the most expensive cars ever built. For what? Because they only ever drove 3 of them, I believe, 15, 16, and 17. Right, so now we're back in the main visitor centre. So if you just do the normal tour, you can get to see this. So they have a very good lunar vault. You'd like this, Janine, with all the meteorites and the rocks. So 3 honking great lunar samples there from the various Apollo missions. Absolutely massive compared to what you normally see. And this is in a big vault, very well protected vault with this huge great door, which I don't know whether it's just for show or whether it's actually there for security. And I say again, this is in the general area as well. This has got Pete Conrad's actual lunar surface suit. So if you can look down, there's actually the bottom half is just encased in lunar regolith dust, which is a very nightmare to get out. Caused them lots of problems on the Apollo missions. This dust got everywhere. And then just talking about the lunar rover and other missions. So this is Apollo 16. So this is Charlie Duke trying to avoid falling into that hole on his space on his moonwalk on Apollo 16. I was lucky enough to meet Charlie at Space Fest. He signed that print for me. And you may know Charlie, you'll recognize his voice probably if you've ever listened to the moon landing, because he was the guy on talking to Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin when they were landing on the moon. So he was Capcom. He was the guy who said the famous line, "You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue." And so that photo is actually next to him with the backup Apollo 11 crew, which is actually ended up being the third Apollo 13 crew. And then just in the main visitor section for the JSC, that's the Apollo 17 command module, and they've actually got the door open. You can actually touch it, which is pretty cool, because most of the command modules I've seen, you can't get near it. But they've deliberately placed that you can actually touch the open door and see inside it. This was a cool photo I spotted. So this was a flag that was flown on board the Apollo 17 command module, and you can see you can see the command module reflected in it. Just a cool photo, I thought. And I was lucky enough to meet the captain of that ship, or the commander, Gene Cernan, the last man to walk on the moon, and he signed that print for me. And I say, unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He passed away about 3 years ago. And there is a documentary about him. I believe it's still on Netflix, The Last Man on the Moon. Very, very honoured and privileged to meet the guy. He was telling me about the 3 times that people saved his lives, because he had first of all, when he was training, he managed to crash a helicopter in a swamp. That was his own stupid fault, according to him. He had to kind of cover that up. And then he went to the moon with Apollo 10, so that was a precursor for Apollo 11. And they got themselves, him and his commander, I forget his name, forgot his name, got themselves into trouble in the lunar lander when they were practicing. They obviously didn't land, but they came pretty close. But his commander saved his life. So he's telling me all these tales. Amazing guy to talk to. And I noticed on that print because I took that photo on that print, I actually took that from the online NASA archive. You can access all of the original unedited prints, and I edited it myself just to give it my little touch. And I noticed, so there you go. So that's the full print, and this is Gene Cernan's quote as he stepped back into the lunar module at the end of his mission. But I noticed there's a small dot in his visor, and it's actually the Earth. And I asked him that, and he goes, yes, that was the Earth. And something I didn't know, which he pointed out to me, was that on the lunar surface, the Earth stays in pretty much the same position in the sky. It doesn't move, because obviously the the moon is tidally locked. So although we see the moon change its position in the night sky from our point of view, from the lunar sky's point of view, the Earth moves a little bit, but it's pretty much in the same spot. And that's pretty much it. So this is just one final photo I took of Apollo 16 moonwalker Charlie Duke and his wife Dot with a first quarter moon above them. This was at Space Fest. So there you go. I've sort of gone through about 60 slides pretty quick. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much. Let me know if you've got any questions.
Well, thanks, Chris. That was very, very good. If you've got questions for Chris, could you maybe use the raise hand in the reactions area?
Everybody's gone to sleep.
Oh, Christ.
Actually, easier than no questions. Janine had a question. Oh, she did. Or did you change your mind? You're on mute, Janine.
I just love the imagery. So I guess my question was, in the building 9, there was a picture. I don't know if they were they mission control patches? There was a row of what looked like mission control patches.
Yes, mission patches of all the previous missions. They have them in the mission control center as well.
Okay, yeah,
building 9. Yeah, well, on the space station module.
Neat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. A question for Marianne. Marianne has got a hand up. Or was that just by accident? Nope.
Marianne, you're muted if you're asking a question. Okay, we'll go on to Lauri.
There.
Oh, there. Oh, you're there. Okay. Good.
Okay. I can't get my picture. I don't know what happened. Anyway, today I bought a book called The Moon Dust from Monroe's. And I've read about 34 pages of it. And it's about the Apollo expedition that Mr. Boar is talking about. And on one of the pages, it says that the Saturn V had 6 million parts. And then on the very next page, it says it had 6,000 things that could go wrong. Now, were there 6 million parts or just 6,000? Would you know?
I don't know exactly how many parts there were, but I remember seeing a quote somewhere, something like if it had 99.999% of non-failure, that still left like 2,000 parts that could fail on you or something. I believe it was well over 1 million parts in the Saturn V, but I don't know the exact number.
It said 6 million in the
6
book.
million. Okay, well I'll accept that as the actual figure.
Yeah, this is Andrew Smith wrote it for. It's an update to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Apollo moon landing. Yep. There are quite a few. If you're interested, there are quite a few of these.
And they did have various failures on the Saturn V's. They had engines go out, and I don't think there was any mission that went flawlessly. There was always something went slightly wrong, but mission control just worked through it. But as I say, if you had like a 99.999% reliability, that still left you a ton of bits that could fail.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No question for Lauri?
Chris, I was wondering whether or not there was very much said or commemorated about the Challenger explosion.
They do have, there is at Kennedy Space Center. I don't know if you've been to Kennedy Space Center.
No.
There's a massive commemoration wall of tiles at Kennedy that includes the Apollo 1 astronauts, the Challenger, Columbia, and some of the Apollo astronauts who never flew because their jet fighters crashed. And at the Johnson Space Center, I didn't include a photo, but we did go in there. You don't get to go in there as the general tour. They have like a memorial garden of trees. So they plant a tree for astronauts that have passed.
Okay.
I believe they just did one for, who was it? I can't remember. But all the Apollo, all the past Apollo astronauts are there. All the shuttle astronauts who've died are there. So the main memorial is actually at the Kennedy Space Center.
Okay, thank you.
Astronauts. A question from Dave Payne.
Well, hi. Thanks for the great presentation.
Thanks, Dave.
That was really interesting. I was just going to recommend, ask if you had gone to the Kennedy Space Center and just recommend.
Oh, yes. Yes, I've been to Kennedy. Well, the first time I went to Kennedy was actually way back in 1990. And it's completely changed then. I went back in 2017. I actually went, I went about 3 times in 2017 when I was on holiday in Florida. And it's actually owned by a private organization, the actual visitor center for Kennedy. It's actually a private, it's not part of NASA, it's a private org that runs it. It's very good. They've got the Atlantis shuttle there in a fantastic exhibit. They've got a very impressive Saturn V in a separate building. And you can actually do private tours. Like when I went, I actually paid to go on Cape Canaveral, which is an active base. And I did the old, I think it was called the old space tour, where you go past all the old Mercury and Gemini launch pads and you go in the Gemini launch control room. Excuse me. So Kennedy is much larger because obviously it's a big operational launch site. When I was there, I actually saw a SpaceX launch back in 2017, just pure fluke. But highly recommend for space nerds or even just normal people.
I was there for a launch too. It was a party atmosphere and it was fantastic.
Yeah, which one was that?
I can't remember.
I saw it was a historic SpaceX launch. It was the first time they relaunched one of their Falcon 9 rockets. Of course, it's like they do it every day. They do it every month now. It's not. It's considered the norm now. But the one I saw was the very first time they really relaunched it. I actually saw a space shuttle launch there on my honeymoon just by pure fluke back in '93. I wasn't at the Space Center. I was about 7 miles away. But yes, highly recommended to go to Kennedy if you happen to be in Florida.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Question from Joe.
Yes, is the VIP level 9 tour still available? It's still running, or
I would have to check. I think they've restarted it recently. I know with all the COVID restrictions gone, they did actually stop it obviously for at least a year, but I believe it's running again. It's not cheap. I think it was about $260. But it's definitely worth it if you're a space nerd like me. And I say that it is, you get your own private tour and lunch is included. But you do have to book in advance. You can't just show up. It has to be booked online in advance.
Okay, thanks for the info.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Just to answer Joe's question, it looks like it's still on their website, so it looks like it might be possible to do that tour.
Yep.
I got a question, a more personal question, Chris.
Yep.
I noticed you had a model of the Saturn V rocket in your room.
I do. Yes.
How old were you when you made your 13 in the late 60s?
Oh, you broke up. Can you say that again, Derek?
Oh, sorry. I said I wonder how old you were when you made your first model of the Saturn V rocket, because I remember getting that model when I was about 12 or 13 in the late 60s.
Oh, well, this is the Lego model. I'll just show you. It's right here.
Lego, is it? Okay.
It's the Lego one. You can see that. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
So that's just the Lego one, which I made about 3 years ago. In fact, I actually only made the first stage. I did the first stage, and then my wife made the second stage, and my daughter made the third stage.
I remember the old Airfix models. You make them as sort of pretty big in those days.
Yes.
They had lots of pieces before they started reducing the numbers of pieces, and I hung it from the ceiling, and that was
Would you believe that Lego Saturn V has 1,969 pieces?
I can believe it. Lego.
As in 1969, the year it landed on the moon, or the year that Apollo 11 landed on the moon. So I don't know how they managed to plan that. So
Yeah, well, you have inspired me to dig out my slides of the visits to both space centers.
yes, there's a lot of history
somewhere
tied up
they're
there.
in my cupboard.
Yeah, dig them out, scan them, get them recorded, because those slides will deteriorate. So
Yeah,
get it digitized. Definitely recommend that, because there's a lot of history there. Question from Janine.
Christ.
Well, I just want to say, wow, Derek, that's so cool that you built the model. And it just made me think of a question for you, Chris. In RASC, Randy Atwood is famous for this, deep knowledge and engagement in this subject. And I imagine other people are. Never was, but is it a small group, or do you, aside from your English friend, do you guys get together, or is it a lonely kind of path?
Just me. It's just me. I just read books. There's a couple of websites. There is a very good online Facebook community called Space Hipsters, which actually has well over 10,000 members, including active astronauts. Highly recommend it. Called Space Hipsters on Facebook. Very well-known group. There's all sorts of huge space community on there. Astronauts. There's the artists. Everybody's on there. Highly recommend joining it. Lots of very interesting posts on there. But I guess that's my online community. But no, it's just me. Any final questions, or shall I shut up?
Well, thanks again, Chris. That was fascinating. I haven't managed to make it to on a tour for that, so it's something I'd like to do now. So.
Yep. Hopefully, I inspired you, and thanks for having me and listening to me waffle on.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. That's
You're
good.
welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're welcome to stay or go as you would like to do. We've got there's a few more things on tonight. So if you want to see what happens next, you're welcome to stay.
Okay, I'll probably kill my video, but yeah, I'll stay.
Yeah. So
thanks
Dave
for having me, guys.
Oh, you're very welcome. Dave will be up next too. So let's just share my screen here and turn this on as a slideshow.
Just as an aside, I saw a post on Facebook from my friend that lives in Newcastle, Australia. He and his teenage son just finished building the Saturn V Lego model, and somebody suggested that he'd also build the gantry for it. His reaction to that was, "Oh no, now you've done me in." Anyway, first thing from Edmonton is a shot from Arnold Rivera. Now, we all have seen Arnold's stuff before. This is his RSA-8, which is a pretty fancy telescope. If I can get the, his RSA, it's on an EQ6R Pro mount. He's got a ZWO camera on that. This particular photograph is 132nd subs. And that's M81 and 82, but it's also many other things. So if you scroll up to the next image, this is a.
Yeah, hold on, I've lost my. Where's it gone here? Oh, let's see if that'll work. No. Oh, there we are. There, that's okay. So this is with the sky view that he gave us.
Yeah, so this shows some of the other galaxies that are in that same field. And if you just go back for a second, you'll see this Bode's Nebula. If you look just to the right of M31, there's a little hazy patch there. That's
that one?
Yeah, that's the one. So now go up 2.
Well, actually what I did is I ended up putting the original photo in and then information. So this looks a bit busy, but here's the photo and here are 2 things.
Okay, if you go one more, the next one is
the next one.
The out of focus jobby. You see that little fuzzy patch there on the right,
which is that. Yeah,
that's Holmberg 9, UGC 5336. That's 16.5 magnitude and 1.4 arc minutes. it was classified by Eric Holmberg back in 1969. It's a satellite galaxy of M81. So with that equipment that Arnold has, he can do some very deep imaging.
Show that previous one too. So he's identified another couple of galaxies.
Yeah, the other ones that are sort of off to the edges there.
Yeah. And
so lots of, and so of course, if it's this time of year, if we can get ourselves over, get a clear night and dark skies, is to get out and go look in that neck of the woods, because there's more stuff there than just the two that we normally see. Okay, and the next one is from Tom Owen. And he said Wednesday the 8th, he said he headed out to Pigeon Lake, which is west of Edmonton. And he wanted to do a picture of using his Takahashi with a 1.6 focal length flattener on it. Or he was deciding whether he'd use his 8-inch edge. And after going through his mind a few times, he decided he would, instead of using long focal length or short focal length with a field flattener, he decided he would do what he called go full, the same routine as what, where have I got it here? Abdur uses. He said he would go full Abdur and attempt to get the biggest image he could, which was with the edge at f10 without any focal reducer. So he lined it all up, used a pole master to line up his mount. He said he could get 25 of a 33 usable 6-minute subs without much in the way of guiding. So he did total exposure of 2.5 hours, an hour in luminance and 30 minutes each in RG and B using his QSI camera. And this is an amazing image of a galaxy that normally for us would be just a little fuzzball. And that was it from Edmonton this week.
Sorry, I'll unmute myself. Thanks for sending those along. And yeah, we got some nice work there. So we're on to one of our other Davids, Mr. Lee.
Hello. Yeah, I just got a message early in this program that Malcolm won't be able to attend Astronomy Day, so we're going to sort of revert to doing kind of group planning. I was actually quite surprised that we were trying to develop a smaller program for this year because we're just kind of easing our way back in. And as it stands right now, I'll just shift my screen here. As it stands right now, of our 2019 program, we have everything back except for 2 items, which is one by choice and one because we haven't heard from people, but it's a pretty full slate. It will likely be that we'll have less room. So we're probably going to have to get people to sort of pull back a little bit in terms of what they bring. But I've heard from just about everybody. And as I mentioned, the telescope making thing, we basically just chose not to do it this year because it does take up a lot of space. And I think Sid called Colin, and Colin really wasn't really up to doing it. So I'll show you the ones that we have. Obviously, we will still have our welcome table. I haven't really asked any of the leads yet whether they need help, but the Astronomy Day itself will occur between 10 and 3 at the Royal BC Museum, and I'm sure there'll be lots of volunteers that are needed. So there's a welcome desk. You can contact Jeff if you want to volunteer for that table. Bill Weir, I don't know if Bill's here tonight. He's going to do the telescope show and tell. Again, we'll have to be kind of careful about what we bring. But we'll have to check. We'll just see what we can get and see how much space we have and sort of estimate. Likewise with the astrophotography exhibit, we would have spread out a little bit. I've asked Joe to just keep it to a digital display this year, just to keep our space down. Likewise with the children's astrocrafts, I think. Actually, I think this is Margie now, not Lauri.
That's right. I was just going to say it's Margie. So
Yeah. Take your name off as much stuff as you can. I think that's a strategy, right? But yeah, that's Margie. The responsible lighting table, Dave, you're coming, right? I think
Yes,
Dorothy's
yes,
supplying you
it-
with some material.
It's just one small table and there's a trifold display board that Dorothy has that we'll use. And I might have a few handouts of, we have some cards with images on them that I might carry as well.
Okay. And the planetarium, this is normally done by Bruno. Ben said that he would check for maybe some volunteers at FDAO to do this, but we don't really know what's happening with this yet. It can be as simple as just running planetarium software like Stellarium and then putting it on a large screen. And Lauri, did you say you had some ideas that maybe Calvin and Don might be able to help with this?
yeah, we'll look after that. Yeah.
Okay. Now, solar observing is a big one. Sid's kind of leading that. I don't know if Sid's here tonight, but I've had a number of offers for people with solar scopes. I think, well, we have, the club itself has two solars. We have one up at the FDAO as well, at the Center of the Universe. I already got a email from Jim Nemec. Camosun College is bringing theirs. And I think there may be one more. I think one more group that has a solar scope. So we'll have a lot of solar scopes, which will be good. Ask an astronomer. I think Nathan has offered to sort of lead this. There's going to be obviously other people from UVic and DAO as well. Now, Nathan can't attend in person, so we're going to have to do kind of a telepresence thing for him, probably using Zoom. I don't think we can be as elaborate as Big Bang Theory, but I think we'll come up with some little monitor where we can show his head, so we can do Ask an Astronomer. Randy's going to look for some speakers. If you have any suggestions, please contact Randy. Ben's kind of leading the FDAO display. James and Dennis, the NRC DAO. Vikaya is coming apparently. Same with Karun with UVic. Science Ventures will be there. Of course, as I mentioned, James will be there outside with the solar, and even Nigel from Shawnigan Lake is going to be there. So full slate. We were trying or aiming for a smaller slate, but it looks like we got almost everybody back. So welcome back. And if you want to volunteer, please let any of these leads know. If the leads went by too quickly, just contact me and I'll put you in touch with the leads.
And just
Okay,
on that
so-
note with volunteers, maybe let Margie know as well, so we can put you on the master volunteer.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Margie, can you talk a little bit about the volunteers list? Let people know what that's about. It's more general, isn't it? It's not just for this event.
No, it is. It's more general. So it would be for any outreach that we do during the year, International Astronomy Day, any of the star parties, Saanich Fair, and whatever else comes up. So Chris said today there are about 25 people who have signed, who have volunteered as volunteers to this point. And Chris now has the list.
No, that sounds great.
Yeah, so
So
just creating an email list just to let you know, so we can, communicate. So when we have events, we'll email out to the list and you can respond and participate as you're able.
Yeah, that's perfect. So one other thing, just to give you a timeline of events in terms of planning Astronomy Day, there are actually 3 events. So there's the RBCM event from 10 to 3 at the museum. And then we're in between. There's going to be a second one that is sponsored by RASC National. And I might get Lauri to tell us a little bit about that. We're participating in a cross-Canada broadcast, and I think it's lunar related, isn't it, Lauri, for the most part? So we're going to need some volunteers for that. Otherwise, I'm going to have to try to do something myself. But I'm sure there are people out there that are handy with telescopes, and I'm certainly thinking that maybe the EEA group will help me out here as well. So we will do that. So that's the second event. And then the third event in the evening, just as traditionally, we would meet up on the hill. So we're going to try to replicate what we used to do, aren't we, Lauri? Pretty well?
We're going to
Yes, she's
try.
nodding her head. We're going to try, yeah.
Yeah. We'll need lots of people, and I can say there might be people who are interested in coming to the museum, but not at night. And then other people that might say, no, I'll not go to the museum, but I would love to come up at nighttime. So there's lots of things for people to do. And the Cross Canada webinar is going to be touching on a number of different centers all across Canada within about an hour and a half to 2 hour time frame. And they want people to be looking at the moon. I'm basically kind of part of the lunar Artemis program. And so what we can do is to set up some EAA, up at the center. We can probably have a good view around the other side of the dome, possibly. We'll see what we can find. And if it's a crummy night, then we can, we could possibly have some things already recorded and just simply do. We've got 10 to 15 minutes that we probably for the Victoria Centre, we'll have some time. So we'll get ourselves organized for that. So it's not a huge long period of time, but it may take a little bit of some work to get everything organized and working. And then that will close down, and then people will start coming up to the hill at about the 7:15 mark. So
Yeah, just
we'll
as
need people all over.
Yeah, just as a side note about the safety net that Lauri is talking about, I'm planning within the next week or two to maybe contact a few people to see if you would like to kind of model looking at the moon for me. I'm going to try to do some video clips of that just as a safety net, just in case our weather isn't good. But I sure hope it will be a good weather on Astronomy Day, but we can't always guarantee it. So
we usually have, Sid has always had something pinned up on one of the walls with a telescope at the other end of the hall. We should make sure we have that available in case we get weathered out.
So let me know if you're willing to kind of pose, or if there's a clear night coming up where there's an opportunity to look at the moon. Just let me know, and I'll see if I can do some video clips of us doing that. I might take the camera around at the RBCM as well, and just maybe show people at their tables as well. So that's another kind of backup plan that I have.
Another thing that came to mind to me, David, was sometimes at these events we get people asking various people, but usually they ask the astronomer at the front table, coming that say they've got themselves a new telescope and they don't know how to.
I hear you. I saw that on the email trail. I think that's a wonderful idea. I don't know if that's something we would advertise for that day. We could.
I think if we get some inquiries at all, then we can start thinking about maybe finding a way of communicating to those and others who might have an interest. And then, as I noted, in Edmonton, about once every 3 or 4 months, Alistair Ling in Edmonton posts on their webpage if people have a telescope with an issue, and he runs a scope clinic at the Teleswirl of Science for them. And usually it's 1 or 2 people that show up, and he spends a couple hours, and people typically go away happy. And we would have an ideal opportunity to do that at some place like Cattle Point without having people having to travel up to the hill.
Yeah, I mean, normally during the summer, when we have our regular meetings, in-person meetings, we would often have at least one evening where we had a clinic. So
Yeah.
we have done it before, and that, actually they were quite good.
Yeah.
But we can't always have people around that are available to do that. But
That's right.
Kettle Point is a better idea, though. Like a public area is a better idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so if anybody's interested, just let me know about any of those three events. We can certainly put you to work. The very last thing I'll mention has nothing to do with Astronomy Day, but I don't know if Jim is here, but I believe we're hosting another Makers SIG next week. I don't see Jim here, so but yeah, look out for that. I'm not sure what we'll talk about, but there's always something to talk about at the Makers group. Anyways, thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, David. Saturday's event, Lauri, are you?
Sure. So this coming Saturday on the 16th of April, both the RASC and the FDAO are sponsoring an Artemis lunar star party. Are a virtual. It will be virtual from 7 to 9, and we are having Randy Atwood from Mississauga Center, who is kind of in the same vein as Chris Boar, is an amazing person who knows all kinds of things about the Apollo missions, and is going to be talking a little bit about kind of the past, and then about some of the future Artemis missions that are coming, that are going to be coming up. And then we also have got a, oh, there we go. There's Randy.
Yeah, in case you missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was shared. So this is his license plate.
This is Randy's license plate. Yeah, I now remember that. I mean, he'd be one of the only people who would know, but he says he's met people who know that. So he said that. We're having a shoot the moon contest, and up until I believe till Thursday, if you'd like to put in some pictures or sketches of the moon into our website at info@centeroftheuniverse.com, we're taking that, and it's not a contest as such, but anybody that puts in something we have a giveaway contest for a package of goodies from the Center of the Universe. So if you would like to put in any of your things, we're going to have a moon quiz. So come prepared. We have got our own Randy Inken is going to be, as I call him, our selenophile, our Ask a Selenophile for this coming weekend. As you know, Randy's got more things on the moon than just about anybody else that we know of for sure. And also Nathan and David are going to be doing a little presentation on how to shoot the moon with with a cell phone, or just easily do some photographing of the moon. And I need you, David, because my XYZ wasn't working as well as I want it to do. So I'll be listening in. Anyway, this is sponsored by the RASC National, as well as the people here. Thank you, Joe, for putting things up on Facebook and up on the website, so people will be able to get some information about that. So we hope to see lots of people out on Saturday night, and then of course on May the 7th, we are just still crossing our fingers that we'll be able to be in person up at the center, and our own very own Chris Gaynor will be our main speaker for that night. So hopefully everybody will be able to come out. We'd love to have people, of course. Always we ask if anybody would like to bring their telescopes up on for the evening to put on the in the parking lot. We'd love to have you there. We'd love to have people inside helping with lots of other things. And we're also making a database of volunteers that will help up on Saturday nights in various capacities. And we'd love to have everybody on there. So we'll be back in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauri. Any questions about that? And just a little bit of trivia there, we can't get that personalized license plate here because ours are limited to 6 characters. So there you go. In case you wonder.
So Lauri, have we gotten approval yet from the government to have the International Astronomy Day?
We have gotten through to James DeFrancesco and Luke Smart, and they have given us permission. So now it has to go to Ottawa for the final approvals. And so we've gone through quite a big part, but we've still got one more part to go. And they've said that it shouldn't take long, but I mean, we all know Ottawa bureaucracy. So hopefully we will, we're just planning, we're just going to kind of go with that everything will be good to go. And so we're doing that now. The internet is still not fixed up at the center, and it still may be 2 or 3 weeks before the internet gets fixed up there, because I think I said last week about the problem that they had with the internet service across the NRC. So that's still a bit of a problem. There's always something, it's kind of like the 13th of Apollo 13, same kind of thing. But we're very close. We're very close for sure.
Yeah, the feds move a little bit slowly. Our fishing club is going to in-person meetings tomorrow, Wednesday night, out at the Chief Petty Officers Mess at the base. And we're allowed to meet in person, but we have to have a vaccine passport to get in the building. And we're going to have to wear masks unless we're sitting down. So don't expect a blanket approval, I would suspect, the way the feds move.
Well, one of the issues there is if you're following the case counts there, that things are not too good in Ontario at the moment. So they're probably going to be looking at it through that lens. So. And
we also, of course, I mean, we're federal. It's a federal space that we're on rather than provincial. So there's some tricky stuff still to come. But I'm just trying to be really hopeful.
Very good. Well, thanks for the update, and I hope things can continue to happen. One question I had is, with the museum being a little bit less than it has been in past years, do we know what the attendance numbers have been? Is it likely to be quieter around the museum on a Saturday, or we don't know?
When I was talking to Kim, she says it's a few less people around, but everybody, I mean, there's still lots of people going in and out.
And the admission is $5, so that's
yes, yeah. I mean, it's very, the main programs are not there, so it's
I was just thinking, Lauri,
cafe to get in. So
Lauri, the press release says that it's free. Is that true?
For Astronomy Day.
It's free to get into our area, but
okay.
You have to pay like this a nominal.
So it's the same as it usually is.
Museum. It's not free. We have to make sure that is definitely said.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is stated on the press release. So
that's bizarre because it's never been that way. I mean, being in the building, like in the main part of the building, is free. Yeah. Like all of the demonstrations and all the stuff is free, but
it's just a clarification. That's all, because
we have to make sure that's
we have to make sure people realize that the people shouldn't come in expecting to go to the IMAX for free any of the other things, right?
And I haven't even checked. I don't even know whether there's a cruise ship supposed to be coming in on that Saturday or not. I haven't.
I was just going to ask.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the schedule, so I don't know.
Yeah, things could be quieter or it could be
yes, could be for sure.
Hard to say. Very good. Great. Bill Weir, you had something for us to say. Oh, yeah. As I recall, he said some books have come his way. I guess he's going to tell us about it.
And I'm back. So I've been doing some house cleaning for someone and have come into quite a bit of astronomy stuff. The gear has gone to Pearson, but I've got a bunch of books and I don't know if people want them. Does anybody need one of these? It's the really nice, beautiful edition that's paper with big maps.
Oh, very nice.
It's the desk version of the Sky Atlas. So it's for somebody, it's actually more of like an in-house thing. I wouldn't take this into the field, but it's very good for planning or just as a beautiful desk item.
Yeah, so for anyone who's in the beginners group and you want to move up to something that's a little bit more detailed and you want to work on paper, that would be an excellent choice.
That would go with this.
Yes.
This is something that's, so this is Stephen James O'Mara's Messier Guide, and it's quite a nice book. It's old, but I think it's from maybe the early 2000s or late 1990s. It guides you through each one. Now, he works with a small telescope. Stephen O'Mara, you might be aware of his articles from Sky and Telescope and Astronomy Magazine. This is a nice one to use if you were getting started to go do some deep sky stuff. So that's there. I found this one. It's like a year-round guide to looking at it kind of reminds me of the Terence Dickinson book of his
Bill, is that one of the Patrick Moore series?
Yeah, it is a Patrick Moore one.
Yeah,
Yes,
I thought I recognized it.
This is practical astronomy series. So this is so it shows you what objects to look for each month, as well as a general thing on equipment and things like that. And it doesn't look too dated because if I saw in here, he actually referenced CCD cameras. So that can't be too old because some things with Patrick Moore can be old.
They can be, yes.
And another Patrick Moore one, this is all about Mars. This is a good Mars year. This could be, you get your Mars on and read a Patrick Moore book. It's a historical book talking about different time periods. I mean, it won't deal, because he's been gone for a while, it will not deal with the stuff that's going on right now. But there's a Mars one. And what Patrick Moore is most famous for is his moon stuff. So there's his moon book. And I've got another Stephen O'Mara. This is the deep sky treasures, the hidden treasures. So this is pushing your limits more. It equates more to like if you were doing the finest NGC objects and it looks like some of them actually go a bit south and might be too far south because he observes in Hawaii, but there's that one there too. So if anybody's interested in any books, there were some, I had all the Web Society booklets, but I can't seem to find them. So I must have left them behind when I was there, but I will be going back. So I have more stuff to pick up. I have more work to do. And I think this one's kind of dated. It's called Mapping the Sky. This looks like one that really makes me think of Terence Dickinson. It talks about equipment, talks about how things in the sky work, some history, celestial mechanics. It's a very rudimentary book on how to, just throwing it out there. And I found this one, but I think I want to read this one. This looks like it's a bit of a companion to Galileo's daughter. This one's called Kepler's Witch. So I'm curious about this one. So maybe when I'm finished with it, it'll be offered up. So people can let me know if they're interested in anything. This Sky Atlas one, I don't know if you can get this anymore or not. This is
I'm not sure. It's definitely a classic. It's
a valuable item, but it's
the epoch is 2000 though, right, Bill?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's
yeah.
good.
You can still get that in several different models. I have the laminated version that is better for taking out in the field with you. But the desktop version, if you want to search things out and then draw a finder chart for yourself,
Yeah, I mean, that's the perfect size for planning star hopping. So if
Yeah,
you made yourself
absolutely.
some circles that were the right size, you could star hop with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I use my,
Will Tyrion's maps are beautiful.
yeah, I
They're
use
so
mine a lot.
perfect.
Bill, I don't know if you saw in chat, but I was interested in 2 of those if I could borrow them.
Oh, sure.
The Atlas and the Messier Objects book. A little bit early for me, but I would love to read them.
Well, none of them are too early.
Yeah, the Atlas would be perfect for you, Dwayne.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And then I'm not quite ready for Messier yet, but I would like to read up on it. So
Sure. No, it's a very good book.
I'll put my email address in here, Bill, and then if you want to email me, I can make arrangements.
Great. Well, thanks for bringing those to our attention, Bill. Thanks for sharing that with the group. Just while we have a bit of a, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, if Bill can't see my email, I think I've got his from when I first contacted you guys, and I could send you out an email, Bill.
I just did
Email will be in
capture,
the meeting notes, so you'll see it there on our website.
Great. And
so
just
you
while
might get
we're
emails from all sorts of people.
whether you want to,
I'll reach out to you, Bill.
and while we're on a bit of a book theme, Martin has a couple of recommendations. If you're able to.
It's me. It's me. I'm here. Do you want to put me in the middle of the screen? So I've got some books to hold up if you want to embiggen me, Chris.
Go ahead, Martin.
There you go.
I've got you in the middle of the screen.
I've got you in the middle of the screen, Joe. So this is the first one. I just finished reading this. This is it's called Fundamentals: 10 Keys to Reality by Frank. I think you pronounce his name Wilczek. There you go. Who's a astrophysicist? There's a physicist. It's a fascinating book. It's quite lyrical about physics. It goes through 10 principles of astrophysics, and it's very readable for anybody that struggles with math, like what I do. It's really quite beautiful in places. Actually, it just yeah, it's a fascinating sort of read through forces and principles and particles and stuff like that, but without any mathematics, and actually quite nice. I picked this one up as well. This is a enormous book. It's actually not, it's tiny. The Black Hole Survival Guide by Jana Levin, which again is a beautifully poetic book about black holes. I literally just finished this last night. The thing that I really like about this is it's illustrated. You can probably just pick it up. It's very beautifully and subtly illustrated, but can you see the black hole in the middle of the cover? It took me about a week before I actually noticed that there was a slight.
It's subtle, but I can see it.
Yeah, you can actually see it better on the screen than you can actually see it in real life.
Mm-hmm.
But the illustrations throughout are really just delightful, and it's just a really lovely book. Short, sweet, and really just a fascinating look into black holes. Again, in a very non-mathematical way, because I don't seem to do math. Just on Chris's Apollo stuff, I wanted to mention a couple of Apollo books. So he was talking about reading books. I still think this is probably one of the best books about the Apollo program by Andrew Chaikin. It's the one that one of the big TV series was based on. It's a doorstop, but that's fascinating. I think probably one of my favorite books about the moon is actually by an English author called Andrew Smith, and it's called Moondust. I realize this is all backwards to everybody, isn't it? It's called Moondust, where he actually went off to go and meet with the surviving members of people who'd walked on the moon at the time. This was written in the early 2000s, I think. And it's really a 2005, oh, actually earlier than that. It's really just a lovely book about the people he went to go and meet who had all been to the moon. I think Chris also mentioned this one, and I really love this version of it. I can't remember, we had this is Carrying the Fire by Michael Collins. We had a talk a few weeks ago about astro art. I can't remember who gave that, but the art on the front cover of this book is absolutely one of my favorites. I tried to look into the person who did it, the astro art, and I can't remember now who it was, but I went to look into it, and he does lots of this stuff in the 70s. It's just really gorgeous graphical image of the command module. Eugene Cerna's book, Last Man on the Moon, which is a great read about the last person to walk on the moon, and also Jim Lovell's book about Apollo 13, which is just called Apollo 13. So if you're into Apollo stuff, these are just great books about various different aspects of them. There's obviously loads and loads of different Apollo books. A bunch of new ones came out for the 50th anniversary as well, but these are some of my favorites. That Moondust one is just great. Anyway, you can you can M small me now, Chris.
Hopefully that did it. Great. Well, thanks for sharing those. Does anybody else have anything for this evening?
Yes, I have one more thing, Chris, if you don't mind.
Please go ahead.
I don't know, there might be people here who know of or have heard of Henry Van Bentum. Natasha Van Bentum has done some work with the RASC for sure, especially with International Astronomy Day. Her partner, Henry, passed away just recently, and he was very well known. He was a very well-known artist who did some quite interesting work, most especially for what was called that were mandalas, beautiful dot mandalas that were called the Organoverse, or I think that's what it was called, Organoverse. And as part of some of the outreach for the thank you, David, the outreach for the Chandra telescope as well was done. And for some of the people who have been, have been around for a little while may recognize the name of Natasha specifically, but Henry was very well known as well. And Jim Hesser has agreed to just write a little note that we will make sure that is sent to her from the RASC on his behalf, giving our condolences to her. So I hope if anybody else has got any other knowledge of Henri, that would be nice.
Actually,
I worked with
when
Henri
you
quite a bit.
yeah, Sid told me that, Joe. Actually, you kind of transported them around during IAD, right?
Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
Henri's work was featured as part of our displays.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. To the public.
Beautiful.
It was, his pointillist artwork was pretty striking and has been picked up by other agencies as well.
I think there are about 100 of them. Is that right, Joe? About 100 mandalas?
Yeah, we have a video of them all on our YouTube. I can leave the link in the meeting notes if people want to find that link to his work. It's he contributed quite a bit to our effort, especially in 2009.
Yes,
because Natasha took on the role of promoting International Year of Astronomy with us. So that was much appreciated.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, I was sorry to hear of his passing, so
Yeah, you can probably get the link from here, but these are just some of the images from that time.
So
lovely work. Yeah.
Natasha also made the original contact with the Bay Center, which is where we had a major IYA 2009 exhibit set up. And she went on, she always saw the opportunity to connect Henri's art with with people who were interested in space. So she became involved in the International Year of Light, which was a couple of years after IYA. And then, as Lauri mentioned, the Chandra X-ray Observatory's public outreach, always giving opportunities for Henri's art to be shared more widely. So basically what Lauri and I were thinking just before this evening is that perhaps draft a letter that Randy or Jill could send to Natasha on behalf of the RASC Victoria Center, of which she has been an off and on member over the years, just to express our sincere condolences for the contributions that she and Henri have made in the last 15 years or so. And I don't think either Jill or Randy are here this evening, so if anybody has other ideas that would be better, that's fine. We just thought maybe they could send something on behalf of the center.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that to our attention. I wasn't around for those times, so I had met Natasha, but not him. Yeah. Does anybody else have anything for this evening? Okay, so I guess hearing none, just a brief update. Joe and I hope to install our TV in its new location tomorrow, and which is another step toward being in person back again in Fairfield. So we'll keep you posted about that. Next week being Easter Monday, we don't have a cafe, so we'll be back on the 25th. We'll hope everybody has a great Easter weekend, and yeah, I guess we'll see everybody back on the 25th. So I guess final opportunities to say something. No, I guess that's it then. Well, thanks for joining us this evening, and we'll talk to everybody again.
Thank you.